Do you feel that Trump is kind of the manifestation of capitalism becoming as bloated as it can be?
Totally, yeah.
Yeah. Because this idea of...
But he's also not good at it,
Yeah.
which is funny.
Hi, you're watching NME. I'm Andrew Trendle, and we're here this afternoon with Kim Gordon.
Hi.
How's it going, Kim?
Good.
With this record, you're kind of looking at the commodification of everyday life, and you were kind of pulling and making a collage of that.
I mean, it's there. I mean, just sort of making observations in a sort of poetic way, I guess, about what's in the landscape.
And you've always said that visual art comes first to you. So at what point did you kind of have the compulsion to do a solo record?
I don't know, I imagine myself being a solo artist, making a solo record. I mean, I say that because that's, my background is going to art school, and I know that means something different in America than it does here. Anyway, I don't know, I just, my ideas, I'm not a musician, or I wasn't trained as a musician. Like a lot of people, I started playing like post-punk, basically, or, you know, fell into it because of punk rock in a certain way. For me, it was more the downtown no-wave music scene I found inspiring, and it seemed more free than what was happening in the art world then, which was becoming very commercialized. I don't know, so I just kind of try to, and this record I think has come the closest to maybe merging my art practice with music. And actually one way that's made it really fun and in the process of promoting is having Loretta Fernholz, this young artist, filmmaker, who I know do the videos. And it sort of made me feel like a little bit like my art community was with me.
Because a lot of people that have, I mean, I really found interesting what you said about the Airbnb phenomenon, and about how it's taking the idea of a home and turning it into a kind of a fantasy.
Yeah, it's sort of like a little mini utopia, but also I think that there's something generic about them. They become more, you know, less home, and now they're very like hotel rooms that have a theme that has to do with a lifestyle. You know, whether, like in LA, I noticed online, you know, there are a lot of surfboards and kind of sunsets and things like that. And but also, yeah, they become more generic, I guess. Like there's probably a suggestions on how to create the right environment to rent your place.
Yeah, so you're kind of buying in, because I went to an Airbnb once in Berlin, and you were expecting it to just be this blank canvas, you know, bed, etc. But he had all these like vintage cameras lying around and like weird vintage jackets, as if you were stepping into his life.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you suddenly felt like kind of bohemian Berlin, and
like you're going to become this person in staying in there, you know, surrounded by their clothes and stuff. I mean, have you had...
How'd that make you feel?
Uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean, I do like the ones, I mean, truthfully, I haven't stayed in that many. The more minimal, the better.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to feel like I'm in someone else's home.
And then in terms of the commodification of the everyday, I mean, do you think that was easier to draw upon because you were in LA?
Well, LA is very much, you know, one of the cliches. It is a very voyeuristic city. You're always in a car looking at something from a distance, and you're also near Hollywood, which is a place where they make fantasies and you know, create fiction. And you're driving around, and I learned about what's coming up on TV and stuff from looking at the billboards.
So it's like advertising is it's actually part of the landscape there, I guess.
Yeah, it's actually part of the landscaping.
Yeah. Do you absorb more of that kind of language as well, and like people thrusting their desires on how you should be feeling?
I mean, I just find it interesting as kind of, I mean, there is sort of a famous quote of Warhol's where he talks about pop art being the outside is the inside and the inside is the outside. And I find it interesting how in advertising, a lot of the one line that you see looks like a fragmented poetry or something often, and it's always some like super personal thing, and then you're walking through an airport but it's not, obviously it's not a person that you know or an individual behind it. It's like this kind of uber unconsciousness that's supposed to reach out to you.
So if there is a message to this record, what would you say it is, or is it just mirroring things?
The message of the record is, well, I don't know, the end of capitalism is coming, and Trump is going to be the person who drives it into the ground. I remember when like the wall came down, and kind of this general feeling in Western world, or this, it kind of was like, oh yeah, communism didn't work, and it disproves it. But it's kind of like it didn't ever. And so then what it came out of it was like just lots of corruption or something. And I feel like we're kind of that way already with lots of corruption.
Yeah. Do you feel that Trump is kind of the manifestation of capitalism becoming as bloated as it can be?
Totally, yeah.
Yeah. Because this idea of...
But he's also not good at it, which is funny.
And, well, it's also, we're approaching the end of the decade, which is terrifying. I mean, when you look back on certain decades, they can be defined by certain things. I mean, what would you define this past decade by?
Yeah, I don't know.
There's a big question.
I can't define it. I mean, it's such a mess. I can't really tell what it is.
I'll struggle with that. And I mean, how are you looking to start the next decade? Will you be...
I do think it's weird, though, how, you know, when they label generations like X, Y, and so this generation Z, it's like we're already at the end of the alphabet. That doesn't seem very good.
And how would you be looking to start the next decade? Are you going on tour, or are you just focusing on art now this record's out?
Well, I do, yeah. I will be doing some touring next year. In January, though, I have a show at 303 Gallery in New York. So after that, I'll be able to concentrate on putting a band together and rehearsing and doing the whole kind of performing.
Do you think you'll perform differently as a solo artist?
Maybe. Because I think, you know, there'll be some backing tracks, and I think I'm just going to do it like as a performance artist, maybe.
Do you listen to much sort of contemporary rock and roll, or are you purely in your own?
Like rock and roll with a big R? No. I mean, there's, you know, some indie rock I like, I guess, like Steve Gunn, Kurt Weill, I don't know, Angel Olsen. I don't know if she's indie rock or what she is.
And when it comes to modern music, I mean, what is it you look for? What do you say might be the common thread between all those artists you just mentioned? I
don't know, like I feel like music like Kurt Weill or Steve Gunn seems kind of timeless. Like it reminds me of, with being totally original, it still reminds me of Jackson C. Frank, or I don't know, just kind of, you know, their voice, something about their voices sounds kind of timeless.
What we're saying about commodification as well, do you see much inauthenticity in music where it wouldn't have previously belonged? Like, for instance, with an Instagram generation, you can copy a punk lifestyle and put a hashtag on it. Do you see much of that, or do you not pay that much mind?
Well, there's a certain aspect to kind of like an irreverence for sound that I like. Like you just take what you need, or take a, you know, reverb effect off of this record or something and put it on this record, or put it on this song, or that is kind of junky in a way that I like. But mostly I don't really pay attention to the music industry, or I should more. I forget to.
It's dark out there.
I don't know, it feels a lot a part of the world's, you know, when Sonic Youth was together and playing, and that one would pay more attention to that, although I didn't actually read Rolling Stone or Spin or any of those.
Aftermath of that and everything that's happened since, I was wondering, do you often hear your influence in other artists?
Sometimes, actually. I mean, like actually during this photo shoot, they were playing a playlist that started out with Deer Hunter, a Deer Hunter play, and it went into like all this other music. And at one point, there was something that I thought, is this Sonic Youth? And then, is this My Bloody Valentine? And is this band Die?
Yeah, I struggle on how to pronounce that. I think it's
right.
Dive
They
or
were saying
Div.
Div, yeah, but they sounded kind of interesting.
And musically, how do you feel when people will hold you up as an example of how a woman in rock can behave and not take any shit? And to be put on that pedestal must be a bit of a head fuck in some way.
Yeah, I always like to put the bar a little low. Just put your expectations down.
Yeah.
That's heavy. I feel like people project a lot of that stuff, so I'm not entirely comfortable.
Well, that was good about the book because you were laying a lot of those myths to rest and saying, this is how it really was, this is how I really am. Did that feel like an act of closure, and then now there's so many questions that you never have to answer again?
I hope so. Yeah, I mean, I think I just sometimes get lazy and I don't feel like certain things need to be articulated, or I don't really care enough to, but it's healthy to do it sometimes. I should do it more.
How would you feel about someone making a movie of the book?
That would be very cool. I mean, I'd have to be involved, of course.
Yeah.
It couldn't be a conventional biopic or anything like that.
Yeah. Who would you want to play you? Dream scenario.
Kristen Stewart.
That would be amazing. Can she shred?
Well, there wouldn't be any music parts.
Amazing.
Because that almost never comes off.
You mentioned some art projects and some books. I mean, what else are you working on at the moment?
That's about it. I mean, there is this improv soundtrack that I recorded. I asked Bill Nays, Steve Gunn, and John Tazinski, who's also part of a duo with Steve Gunn, to do this improv soundtrack to a Warhol film, Kiss. And that was part of the installation at the show I had there in Pittsburgh last May. And there was a record that came out of it, and we'll tour with it a little bit.
And are there any kind of medium that you haven't explored yet that you're really itching to?
I guess movies, but I'm not really. I don't know. I love film and cinema. Yeah.
Brilliant. It was an amazing note to end on. Kim, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Thank you. Cheers.